Hello, welcome to the next episode of Pivot with PJ. This is PJ, your host. Today with me, I have Deepika. Deepika today thinks her script is and when it might have been written.
I think the script would still be under construction.
Your view on making these changes or going after your heart's desires.
Who am I? What do I like to do? Not many women ask themselves.
What would you say was going on in your mind when it came to readjusting those needs?
This is the money I have. What can I do with that? Right? Changes you in ways that you are unprepared.
I'm PJ and I'm here to navigate the bends of the roads with you. I'm looking forward to it. Let's get on this ride together on Pivot with PJ. Hello, welcome to the next episode of Pivot with PJ. This is PJ, your host. Today with me, I have Deepika. Very interesting non-linear journey she has had. When it comes to transitions, I think I have to say Deepika is a voice to reckon with, right? Both literally and figuratively, and you will know why as we continue the conversation. Um, Deepika started off as a techie, I believe, in TCS, right? And moved on to teaching young children at Harishri Vidyalayam, one of the premium schools in Chennai. And from there, she became an entrepreneur, ran a digital marketing agency, and subsequently started a play school. Then COVID hit, and she had to shut down the play school. In the meanwhile, she had designed a board game based on one of the most beloved epic story from Tamil literature, Ponniyin Selvan. Um, my family, has purchased that board game, and it's one of the best family times we have every time we play that. Um, and then subsequently, she has lent her voice to so many timeless epics and stories as a voice artist for audiobooks. She also runs multiple podcasts, a true crime podcast, a children's podcast, and a spiritual podcast. All of them in vernacular, all of them in Tamil. She also started teaching podcast recently in Asian College of Journalism. Uh, I believe not just there, right? There's one more college that you teach
Yes.
podcast in. So quite a journey, Deepika, quite a non-linear curve. And I'm super excited to talk to you about your journey. And I specifically want to kind of delve into the spaces between these different journeys. Every time you took a turn, what did that turn look like? I really want to go deep in that space. What did that look like for Deepika? And while we do that, I'm sure you would have told this story so many times. So the new beginnings are always great. And also, I would like to know how you process the ends. When you had to shut down, when you had to leave your first high paying IT job, and you had to leave your teaching job and Jula and all of that, and how did you process yourself out of it into the new road, so to speak? So I think that's where we'll delve into. But before we go there, if there is anything that I had missed on your introduction, please fill it in and say a few words about yourself.
Thank you, PJ, for having me on your show. I think from the introduction itself, I think your listeners would know what sort of a journey this has been. Just one thing is, Jula is not a play school, it was an after school activity center. Just that. And in between, I tried building some communities as well, especially for women. That's one thing that I might not have highlighted in a lot of my LinkedIn profiles and other places. I call it freedom, where women after marriage trying to reinvent who they are as just them and not associate them as a wife or a mother or the person that they are at their work, right? So that was a brief experiment I did. But yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything else.
Wonderful. I think the great place to start is what I missed out in the introduction, freedom.
Okay.
I think that's a great place to start. See, one of the things that I've read, Deepika, about writing our own scripts. about identity, about being who you are. Like you mentioned, what you try to do with freedom also. Dr. Byrne, one of the proponents, and in fact, he wrote Transaction Analysis, and in one of his very famous books, he claims, or he proposes, based on his research, that we kind of human beings write our script very early in our childhood, and gets buried under a lot of things that experiences that comes up. Gets kind of gets buried in the subconscious. Oftentimes we don't even know consciously what that script is. So maybe we'll start there, talk a little bit about what Deepika today thinks her script is, and when it might have been written. If you can reflect on that a little bit, we'll start there, and then we'll move on from there.
I think that my script has been written, rewritten, unwritten. So I think it's a constant process. I don't think there is one point in time where we write a certain script and stick to it. Even if I had not jumped so much across different careers, I think the script would still be under construction. I think if you ask me who am I, innately having jumped through different roles, I think the word teacher would be the one that I would closely associate myself with. So if you were to ask me when that part of the script was written, I think maybe it was during my school days itself. I think when people ask me, what do you want to become? I've always said teacher. And even though I've not been a teacher continuously, I think I've always been a teacher at heart. And whatever I do, I think the teacher in me keeps coming out. Way back in school is when that part of the script was written.
Excellent, excellent. A teacher and a work in progress. A very simple, short script, I suppose.
Yes.
So let's delve into these spaces, right? Maybe we can start with the first void space between your first transition. So whenever you moved from being a techie from TCS and took the decision, made the choice to join Harishri, it must have been a big choice, or not? How did that go?
Actually, I would like to talk about a transition even before that, if that's okay.
Absolutely, please.
I did bioengineering, and that was BTech bioengineering at Shastra University, Tanjavur. And I loved bioengineering. I was the best outgoing student and whatnot, right? But then I ended up in an IT company. After my graduation, when I was waiting for my offer letter to come, that was a transition period, I would say. And in that period, it was about, I think, maybe 4 5 months after graduating and waiting for the offer letter to come and join TCS. I was a teacher then. I called the children in my neighborhood and I would take tuition classes, or I would tell stories, or I think that transition period itself sort of defined me as a teacher there. So the teacher in me, I think, was always there waiting to come out. A very interesting thing happened. I was working for TCS, but I was not happy there. It was very, very obvious that I didn't belong there. The kind of work that I was doing was just not giving me enough excitement. So I was constantly thinking about what could I do if I'm not a part of TCS, what could I do? And the first immediate answer was become a teacher. It was a no-brainer for me, right? And I started applying to a lot of schools in Chennai. And it was very interesting to see how the schools responded. One school said, you're overqualified to be a teacher, and so we can't give you a job. I mean, what is it? How can somebody be overqualified to be a teacher? That I never understood that statement. And then there was this other school that said, "Oh, you don't have a BEd degree. So what we'll do is we'll put you as the teacher for our kindergarten, and we'll pay you 5,000 rupees a month." And I said, "Don't mistake my passion for stupidity, right? I'm sure you pay your ayahs more. And this is not a small school. It's a giant school run by a proper company, right? So it was very fascinating for me to see how these different schools reacted. And then something very, for the lack of a better word, interesting happened. I attended interview in Harishri, and while I came back, I met with an accident. It was a proper accident, in the sense I broke a few bones in my leg and I had to undergo a major surgery. which put a plate and seven screws in my leg. That was a very crucial transition period, I would say. I did not know if I would be selected. I had just completed the interview and I had met with this accident. I underwent a major surgery and I was advised bed rest for 6 weeks.
You
And
hadn't quit your job at TCS at
no,
that time.
no,
Okay.
no. I was on sick leave 6 weeks. I was bedridden for 6 weeks. You can imagine what being bedridden for 6 weeks can do to your mind, right? The first 1 or 2 weeks was amazing because I got all the rest, and I read a lot of books, I watched a lot of movies, all the pending reading lists and watch lists were like completed, and then I started to get bored, right? It's natural that you get bored after 2 weeks of bed rest. That gave me a lot of time to think. Till then, I think I was not very sure about the transition. Should I quit this high paying job to become a teacher? And after attending multiple interviews in different schools, I sort of had this doubt whether I would belong in these places, right? So a lot of thought process happened, but then I was sort of convinced that yes, I should quit the job and become a teacher. And Harishri, thankfully, I think they asked me to come for the second round of interview, which is actually taking class in a classroom with students. But I told them that I have this situation where I can't walk. And they were very considerate to say, you can come after you start walking. So that transition period gave me a lot of clarity in terms of what I want to do. It's not just money that was a stopping thing for me. I think one interesting thing is I think I'm quite privileged to not worry about money because I am not the breadwinner of the family. Thankfully, my husband takes care of the that chunk of the responsibility. So that gives me privilege and freedom to explore, right? So money, yes, it's important, but that was not the factor for me to hold back myself from becoming a teacher. I was thinking about other things. Would I belong in that community of teachers and students? But that break gave me clarity, and that break told me that go for it, let's see what happens. And thankfully Harishri picked me as a teacher, and the jump in terms of pay scale, right, it was one fifth of what I was earning in TCS. The workload was double. I had to get up really early in the morning. I had to be in school at 6:30. So my life completely changed. But every minute inside the classroom was just worth it.
Wow. Amazing. See, I'm trying to go slightly deeper on this because this is your first major transition decision,
Yes.
and in a way, your view on making these changes or going after your heart's desires, taking bold decisions where you had to take turns, would be predicated on the success of this in a way. So I want to slightly go deeper on this one, particularly around two aspects. Right? You did mention, thankfully your partner was the primary earning member. He was. See, but still, around that time, in a way, now also, right now, it's slightly different right now these days. But at that time, two members, both the partners earning was becoming very normal, and also a lot of our financial goals, life goals, would depend on both the salaries. And I'm sure you would have made plans based on that, whether it is home or travels or whatever, right? What would you say was going on in your mind when it came to readjusting those needs? I'm sure you would have had goals or needs. Did you have to readjust that to tell yourself, hey, this is something that's good enough for us, we're happy with this, let me go chase my passion?
Very interesting question. My parents never owned a house. My grandparents never had loan for anything. So my parents also believed in not taking a loan for anything. So my growing up, the value system was if you are taking a loan for something, it means you don't need it at that moment. That was the value system with which I was brought up. And thankfully, my partner was in sync with that value system. So, like most married couples, we never had EMIs. Even now, touchwood, we don't have EMIs. We don't own a house. We don't own a car. And we've never felt the need to own a house or the need to own a car. As a young married couple, so this was 1 year into my marriage, right? The decision to quit my high-paying IT job and joining a school as a teacher was just 1 year into my marriage. So, what were we doing? We were just, spending our money on going out on dates, having fun, watching movies, fancy dinners. So this is what we were spending our money on. So if you look at the commitment per se, it was just running the household that was the major commitment, right? So when we calculated, we figured that whatever he earns would go into taking care of the household, and whatever I earn, we will spend it on whatever expenditure that we have in terms of watching a movie or going out for dinner or whatever pleasure we felt we were spending that money on would still happen in the salary that I was earning. So what would take a hit was the savings part, right? The investments part. So we decided that we will see how to save from whatever is left, how to invest in whatever is left, and we'll figure out as we go. So because of this whole lack of EMIs, in our lives, the decision was not that difficult for us to make that jump.
Wow. So financial freedom so early, and it
Yes,
also in a way comes from having that maturity to know what your real needs are and being
yes,
comfortable and being in peace with
yes.
your
I
needs.
should thank my parents for that, right? Because growing up, we would indulge in a few things, right? It was not like we had a saintly lifestyle. No, we would definitely indulge, but we were very clear that this is the money I have. What can I do with that, right? I will obviously have to spend on the essentials. I would obviously have to invest something for the future. I would obviously indulge in some things, right? So that is something that came from my childhood, thanks to my parents. And again, I think I was very blessed to get a partner who believes in the same things, right? That's a very important thing. And because all this came together, I think I had this financial freedom to experiment with my career right at the beginning of my life or career or marriage. So I think that's the key here.
And not much of a pressure from your partner's family also, clearly, and that also
No, no.
must have
They
helped.
were they were like, do what you want. And my parents have always been like that. They be it my engineering choice or the choice that I made of getting into TCS or the choice I made in terms of my life partner. So my parents have always believed that I have the maturity to take certain steps in my life. And as long as it's not detrimental, they don't come in and say, why are you doing this? And because my father and mother also never thought money is the ultimate in life, right? They believe that there are other things, not just money. So neither my parents nor my in-laws had any qualms about my jumping. I mean, till date I've been jumping, right? And they've all been supportive only of all the jumping that has happened.
Fantastic. I think that's very, like you said, privileged and fortunate to have that kind
Yes,
of an
privileged
environment.
and blessed. I think these
Yeah,
two are words that I will keep repeating. If I take credit for something, then it's not fair because these two have been extremely important for whatever reasons, whatever career choices I've made. It's because of certain privilege and certain blessing.
totally, totally great. And uh, and obviously, when you worked with other women in freedom, and you come from with privilege and blessing, and it has in a way enabled, supported, aided you to be in a position of making choices for yourself, and you also in a way were quite self-aware about who you are, what you wanted to do, in some form or the other, because teaching kind of stuck with you right from the beginning. So when you have worked with other women, Deepika, has it always been like that? Obviously, it's not the case in every family, for every individual, for every woman. What would you say your experience was working with women? We don't need to talk about specific individuals, but for those who are not blessed or privileged enough to have this kind of a support system, how can they exercise their choice? How can and everybody has the agency, but how do they exercise that in your view?
See, to have a supportive family, right? That, yes, it is blessing to a certain level, but you should also work for it. That is something that I have realized and I have understood. I live with my in-laws. I've been living with my in-laws from the day I got married. Now, do you think if I don't do anything or if I don't put hard work, they would continue to be supportive? Would they continue to be, oh, do whatever you want, we'll be there for you? It doesn't work like that, right?
It's a give and take.
The effort has to be from both the parties. So for setting up a supportive ecosystem, one has to take steps, one has to work hard, and any relationship is hard work. Even friendship is hard work. Maybe we don't realize it is hard work, but it is actually hard work. The reason we don't realize it as a hard work is most of the core friendships that we form in life happens during school or college. Hardly after that, if you see, you wouldn't form core friendships. That is because you would have the privilege of investing time, effort, and energy into a friendship when you're in school or college because you're not pressured by other things. But once life happens, for you to put in that efforts into a relationship, even if it's a friendship, is a challenge. So I think every relationship is hard work, whether it is with your partner, whether it is with a friend, whether it is with your child. If you want a successful, in terms of a functional relationship, because everyone has their own definition of success, but if you want a functional relationship where you are able to do things that you believe in, you are able to do the things that you want to, then it's a lot of hard work. And in freedom, one thing I observed was people were not ready to put that hard work consistently. I think if you are not consistent, be it anything, right? Anything needs consistency. Say, today you've started this podcast. One thing I've learned with my podcasting journey is consistency is the only thing that will take you somewhere in your podcasting journey, right? Such in a podcasting journey, in a life journey with another person, consistency is key, right? So I found that yes, I am blessed. Yes, I am privileged. But I wouldn't undermine the efforts that I took in the relationships I have, be it with my in laws or be it with my partner or be it with my daughter, right? Because right now she's 10 years, she's going to be 10. And even she's a part of all the transitions that I am going through, right? So even she has to understand the dynamics that are there. So that is hard work again. So the most important thing that I figured was that people, or the women in freedom to be specific, did not realize that they had to be consistent with their hard work to build a sustainable functional relationship. So that was the one learning that I had. The second learning that I had was associating myself as a wife, as a mother, or as the team member in my office is the thing that they prioritize rather than associating themselves as the person they are, right? Now, who is Deepika? Yes, she's a wife. Yes, she's a mother. Yes, she's a daughter in law. Yes, she's a voice artist. But who am I? What do I like to do? If I'm not a wife, if I'm not a mother, if I'm not a voice artist, if I don't have any work, what do I like to do? This is a question not many women ask themselves. They don't really spend time to figure out what they like to do without anybody else, right? I might like to watch a movie. I might like to read a book. I might like to draw. Or I might just sit and listen to music, right? It could be anything. But women don't have the awareness to figure out what they like to do, what gives them happiness. They might say, "Oh, it gives me happiness to see my child happy." But that's fine. I mean, that's okay. But what makes you happy? What do you want to do? Not to make money, just what is it that you want to do, right? We always associate hobby or passion. How can I someday convert it into a money making venture? That's a very wrong approach according to me. I think if you like drawing, just draw. No, you don't have to sell your art and become one, set up one whole art show or something. So
Right.
These were the two things that we were trying to sort of establish and support each other with respect to self awareness and building functional relationships. These were the two points where I think I was able to help other women with.
Hmm. Fantastic. And you said it's a matter of consistency when it comes to putting in the hard work in relationship. Could it also be the notion of I need to get before I give,
Yes.
kind of attitude? Because that's something that I've observed as well, not just in women, but in everybody in general, including men.
Very interesting point, because this is what we've discussed so many times since freedom, right? You need something, you want to get something. If you want to get something also, you have to do something. No, say I'm thirsty, I need to get water, I have to get up and go, no, and get that water bottle or drink. If I'm sure what I need to get from that relationship, then I should put efforts for that also, no. That is something that I think is very very important from this relationship. I need this. I need to get this, or I want to get this. How do you reach there? You can't sit idle and just wait for it to happen. That is the most important thing that we would discuss. Say you want X person to do this for you. What would you do for that person to do that to you? End of the day, you are sort of working towards getting what you want only. But they feel that they are doing the work for somebody else, right? So I think that's the key point here.
Excellent. Very well put. So let's move on from your TCS to teacher journey. Given your passion for teaching, I suspect the next transition would have been heartbreaking in a way, unless it was forced upon you, leaving the job, teaching job to. I think from there you started Productive Solutions, if
Yes,
I'm not wrong,
yes, yes,
as along with Varun, right?
yes.
So let's talk about that. What, money was not much of a thing for you at that time. You were okay to take one-fifth of the salary to pursue something that you really enjoyed doing, teaching. But what made you give up something that you were so passionate about to start something else?
Every minute inside the classroom was amazing. I had some best moments of my life inside the classroom. But same could not be said about the time spent in the staff room. Staff room politics is very, very different from corporate politics. And education system per se, right? When you are inside the system, I felt that you can only do so much, right? You only have moving space to do the limited moving space that you had was was very constricting for me. I wanted to do so much more, and I was capable of doing so much more, but within a system, within a construct which has been established and which has been there for years together, it was very stifling for me. So that is when I thought, maybe I should experiment something else, or maybe I should do something else. The thought of moving to another school never came to my mind, because I knew that it's the same there. The rules are going to be the same. Maybe the playing stage is different, but it's still going to be restrictive for me, right? So the transition there was very clear for me. I knew what I was doing. But the last day in my school there at Harishri is extremely memorable. I had to say tata to the different classes I was handling back then, and around 90 100 children came running in a room where I was, and they cried so much, I cried so much, and it was a very painful day, but I cherish it a lot. I know it might sound very strange. So many people cried, I cried, so many children cried, but I still vividly remember that day, and I hold it very close to my heart. I think what I experienced was love at one of its purest forms, because children can't act, children can't cry like that unless it really makes them feel that. So that was very painful, but I cherish it at some level, and the transition there, again, with the money side of things, I came to zero, because you start a company, you don't know what's going to happen. So from something to one fifth to zero was the transition in terms of money. But in terms of whether I wanted to do it, whether I missed being a teacher, whether I was sad that I left a teaching job, I was okay with it. I made a very conscious decision with it.
Despite the pain of leaving the
Yes,
children
yes,
that you loved so much.
yes.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. There is no 100% perfect decision, I
Correct.
guess, looks like,
One
in a way.
cannot have everything in life, no?
Right.
It's about you
What matters the
choosing.
most.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. And did you at that time know in some corner of your mind that you would still work with children
Yes,
in the
yes.
future?
Yes, I think that was a given. I think the idea for Jula was there even before I joined Harishri. Jula was something that I was carrying within me for a very long time, refining it, redefining it inside my own brain and inside my own heart. There was a lot of thought process happening non-stop. So I knew I would get back to being with children somehow. Just did not know when, how, where, but I was very sure that I will somehow get back to being with children.
Nice. And that's when I think you we'll come back to Productive Solutions, your marketing agency. That's when we also met, and I
Yes,
was running my startup, and you and Varun were helping me with digital marketing at that time, and you were fantastic
thank you.
at what you did. Uh, so, and then you kind of did this plus Jula, right? You set up Jula
Yes,
along
yes,
with the marketing agency.
yes. So we started Productive Solutions, and then one major transition happened in my life. I became pregnant, and that was another journey by itself. So I decided that I will hold on to the idea of Jula till at least my daughter or son, back then I didn't know, till my child, becomes slightly independent, and that's when I would be able to do justice to both Productive Solutions and Jula and being a mother. So that transition was fantastic. I think becoming a mother, sort of, I mean, it might sound very cliche that it changed me forever type, but I think physically, biologically, emotionally, it changes you in ways that you are unprepared for, right? So
And in a lot of ways irreversible also,
yes, yes,
right? It just
truly.
changes you for good.
Good or bad, and sometimes both could be irreversible, right?
Right.
So but yeah, it changed me, it gave me new perspectives, and it sort of made my ideas, or the principles that I had, in terms of what Jula should be, became stronger because of my journey of being a mother. So it sort of helped me shape Jula to be what it would become in my mind. It really helped. And Productive Solutions was very interesting, right? In the sense, I had no prior experience in terms of doing digital marketing or branding or anything that I did at Productive Solutions. But I enjoyed it in a very different way. I loved meeting people who are brimming with ideas. Like, I loved Bridge, for example. I mean, what an idea, what a concept, right? So for me, it was meeting these people who have ideas and brainstorming those ideas with them. And I still remember the board game event that you guys had,
Right.
put together. That was sort of very close to my heart, because I've always been a fan of board games and I've always collected board games. And so Productive Solutions was where I could let my creativity flow like that, right? Because I am somebody who brims with ideas. And for me to meet people who are brimming with ideas and work with them and sort of collaborate on their ideas was exciting. Then my daughter, my daughter was born, and then that's when I decided, when she was almost 1.5 years old, I thought I will launch Jula. That's the journey.
Excellent. And you and I have talked about parenting and childhood education and all of that. Maybe that's a deeper, longer
Yes,
conversation. We'll
yes,
probably have a separate podcast
yes,
episode just for
yes,
that.
please, yes.
We should absolutely. But back to Jula. I think this is probably the only transition that was imposed on you in a way. I would say because of COVID,
Yes. So Jula, I started it out of the third bedroom of my house,
right?
and it very organically grew. And when I had three batches of children, that's when I decided I would rent a place and set it up, and it was like a dream for me. And as I told you, I was carrying that idea within me, and I was constantly working on it subconsciously. And the day came for it to become a reality. I rented a house, I painted the house. My cousin did beautiful artwork on the walls of that house. I set up a beautiful library. I had a board game room with about 250 games. And so it was like a, oh my God, dream come true. For I mean, as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you would resonate with that
Right.
passion, right? And then COVID struck. I had run Jula for about 4 years, 4.5 years by then. And it was a very organic, beautiful journey, beautiful growth. There was no pressure to get investment or no pressure to start a second center. I never approached it in a typical startup sense. I was very successful in terms of even the monetary side of things, right? That it worked for me at different levels, in terms of money, in terms of what I want to do, in terms of what I firmly believe in terms of who I am as a person. It all came together so beautifully, and then, tadak, COVID happened. And when the lockdown started, nobody knew, right, how long this lockdown would go on for. So I was hoping that maybe I can try pushing it for a few months. So I was still paying rent, salaries, and stuff for I think 4, 5 months. I continued, I tried to have
Hold
the
on to it.
boat afloat, but then there was no light at the end of the tunnel in terms of when the whole thing is going to become normal. And the whole premise of Jula was gadget free childhood. And here we have COVID, where every child is unfortunately stuck with a screen, and there's no other way for these children to attend schools or other classes. I could have I could have taken Jula online, but I could not go back on what I firmly believe in, right? I still believe that at least children under the age of 8 don't need screens in their lives. That's what I still firmly believe in. So I decided no online Jula, and it was very, very painful to close everything. And again, this is during the lockdown. The house owner said, if you're clearing it out, clear it out, right?
Hmm.
So I had to empty a library. I had to empty a 250 board game room, and I had to empty all the art supply. And on top of all that, the most painful thing for me was to repaint that house and give. We had created some beautiful artwork. I mean, every child, every parent who ever stepped into that place, would go wow at the art and would.
I've been there.
Yeah, yeah,
Fantastic, beautiful
right.
environment. Yeah.
Yeah, so I did all of this during the lockdown. I had to call people to paint, I had to call people to shift, I had to make space in my house to fit the entire thing. I had a beautiful bookshelf. If you remember this round bookshelf that I had
The
in the
spiral one.
library, I had to shift everything. Yes, I had to shift everything. And during the lockdown, I think I held up all the energy I had to sort of do all this. And then I broke down. I think I cried like crazy for a day or two. I don't know. It was sheer grief. I think it was grief. I cannot name that emotion as anything else. It was like seeing somebody that I love die, right? It was as painful as that, or I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and I think. after crying, and we all have to move on at some point. So yeah, that happened.
Yeah, that's the classic journey of grief. Also, we'll come to that in just a moment. But you also couldn't say a proper goodbye to your children at that time. I would
Yes,
think, right? Because it was also
yes,
abrupt,
yes.
and you would have never thought, and the
Very
children
abrupt.
would have never thought that it's going
Yes,
to end like that. And
yes,
I also know that the Jula parents community was also very active. And
yes,
um, did you? And that's another community that
yes,
deliberately or inadvertently that kind of formed organically for
yes,
you.
yes, yes.
How supportive were they in this shutting
So
down?
I
I'm
think
sure
they
it.
all went through grief at their own levels as well. I think parents, children, they all experienced it in different ways, I would say, and they all still, even today, some of the children have outgrown the Jula age group. And some parents have a second child and they say, oh, my first child got to experience Jula, but my second child never got to experience Jula. So when are you starting again? Even yesterday, I had a parent send a message to me on WhatsApp saying, are you at least opening the library, or are you at least doing something? So they all seem to still have hope that Jula would come back again. I think only time has to answer.
Wow, keeping it open. uh, that's good.
Yeah.
And talking of grief, right? I know, when something kind of, when you lose something that you held so close to your heart, and there's grief, there is anger, there's denial, and eventually you accept and move on. And you looks like you had to go through all those stages of
Yeah.
grief. All of these transitions, in a way, well, I don't know if I can call it predictable, but I could relate or understand, at least looking back. But from there to lending your voice, had you thought of it before at all, or was it kind of a serendipity that you became a voice artist at that? I think that was the next journey for you, right, after Jula.
Yes. So it actually happened while Jula was up and running. I was introduced to the world of audiobooks through Stephen Fry's Harry Potter. I'm a huge Potter head. Potter fanatic would be a better word, I think. I've read all the seven books multiple times, and I mean, call me crazy, but when I was pregnant, I read all the seven books again because, like, Abhimanyu inside the womb, I like should learn the whole thing. I was like, my child should know Harry Potter when he or she is still, in the womb type, right? So I read all the seven books when I was pregnant, and very crazy Harry Potter. Like, Harry Potter is my
A constant companion, huh?
something that makes me feel happy. Like, anytime somebody comes and talks to me about Harry Potter or something about Harry Potter, then I immediately, get all excited, and so it's that for me, right? And then my brother Varun only asked me to listen to the Harry Potter audiobook, but I was quite arrogant. I would say, in the sense, what is it that all the rereadings of Harry Potter, would not give me that this audiobook would give me? So I was quite arrogant, and I kept pushing that, even the thought of trying this audiobook. But then he kept insisting, you listen, no, then you will know. And that's when I got into Storytel, which is an audiobook app. And I started listening to Harry Potter 1. Man, I was mind blown, right? In the sense, all the arrogance came crashing down. And then I was like having some of my best moments listening to Stephen Fry's Harry Potter. And I would constantly be smiling, and then I would be crying, and then I'd be going through all the emotions all over again, that I experienced for the very first time when I was reading it. And then this whole new medium was like, wow, what a great medium, right? Audio. And this was way back in, I think, 2017, right? And I was just a listener. I was listening to audiobooks. In parallel, I would say that storytelling comes naturally to me. In Jula, I would be telling stories to these children in every class. And I think storytelling has been passed on through my genes from my father. When I was small, and my cousins, when they come home, my father would be telling all of his stories. So storytelling is something that is very close to my heart. So, on the one hand, I know that there is a storyteller in me. On the other hand, I have found this new medium that is very exciting. I'm listening to English audiobooks, and then I'm searching for Tamil audiobooks, because growing up I read English and Tamil both, right? So when I started searching for Tamil audiobooks, I found that there aren't many Tamil audiobooks. Even the ones that were available on YouTube either would have bad pronunciation. I'm like a pronunci Nazi, if I can call it, right? Like run or la. So it has to be that. And I couldn't find good Tamil audiobooks in terms of pronunciation, modulation, and nowhere near Stephen Fry. So the storyteller in me was like, oh, you should become the Stephen Fry in Tamil, right? Quite ambitious to think like that. But then I thought, okay, maybe I'll do that. Very interestingly, something happened in Freedom that sort of gave me the confidence to become an audiobook narrator in specific, because
So freedom all along this journey, freedom was a constant. It remained with you.
yes, yes, was there.
Okay.
Yes. So in one of the meetings, what we decided to do was, I would read out a story, and the other women would sit and listen, and then we'll talk about the story. So one author that deeply impacted me during my crucial stages of, I think, life, was Lasa Ramamridam. He writes these really intense stories with women protagonists, such strong women protagonists. And I was very surprised to know that none of these other women in Freedom had no clue about this author. I was like shocked. How can this happen? Like, I took it personally, and I'm sure even Lasa Ramamridam or his family would not have taken it that personally. I said, okay, next session, I will read one story that I love, and you should all listen. So I took this story called Parkadal. It's a very beautifully written story about a woman who writes the experience of her Tala Deepavali. Tala Deepavali is typically the first Deepavali after marriage, right? So the woman writes a letter to her husband who is away from her. So the wife is living with her in-laws and a huge joint family, and she is narrating her experience of what happened before the days of Deepavali and on the day of Deepavali as a letter. So the entire story is a letter written by this young woman, and typically the household is 1960s 1970s type household, right? Every time I read that story towards the climax, my eyes would well up, right? It's like I would have read the story so many times, and every time it will happen, like my eyes would well up when I read the climax of the story. So here we are, a group of 10 women sitting in a circle, and I am reading the story. It's a 30-minute story. So if somebody has to listen to the story, they have to spend 30 minutes. So, and I've reached the part of the story where my eyes well up all the time, and tada, my eyes well up, and I'm only able to see some parts of the page, right? Through my tears, I'm reading through the climax, and I'm not taking my eyes off the book to see what these other women are feeling, but I could hear them all cry. Like, I could hear them weep. I From the corner of my eye, I could see that kerchiefs are going up and wiping tears.
What a
And
moment.
yeah, so I finished reading the story, and there is silence, like a very beautiful, intense silence, right? Like, it's that realization that everybody is feeling what you are feeling, but in different ways. It was this beautiful moment of silence that we all experienced. And after that, all of them started discussing about the story, what they felt, how were they able to relate it with their lives. And that's when I realized that I could be an audiobook narrator, because I have successfully translated the emotion that the author conveys to the listener. On the one hand, here I am as a listener searching for Tamil audiobooks. On the other hand, here I am, the storyteller who feels that she could sort of bridge that gap, and thus was born Kadai Osei. And coming from my own branding and digital marketing background, starting itself, I will do one logo, one nice name, and all that. So that was done, and I started this. This was in 2019, April, that I launched Kadai Ose. Very interestingly, one thing led to another, and I approached Storytel, from where my whole audio journey started. And I said, guys, do more Tamil audiobooks, right? Why are you not doing in Tamil? And then the country manager of Storytel India very kindly said, do you want to join us? We are looking to start Tamil. Why don't you join us as a consultant? And bam, there I was like jumping at the opportunity. And I joined them as a consultant, and I went on to become the language manager for Storytel Tamil, where I produced about 300 Tamil audiobooks and narrated over 60 Tamil audiobooks, and went on to even become the marketing manager for Tamil. Sort of bringing all the experience from my past careers, right? And then jumping fully at the opportunity, and yeah, that's how the whole storyteller audio journey happened.
Yeah, translating author's emotions to the listeners, I think in a way there is something that happens in between these two where you feel those emotions. You feel those emotions like on so deeply, so
Yes.
therefore you're able to kind of transfer that.
Yeah,
And
so one interesting thing that I've always strived to do, or I'm striving to do in terms of that, is I think the narrator should become invisible at some point, right? It's the characters in the book on one side, and the listener on the other side. The narrator's voice should vanish at some point, is my belief, right? As a narrator, I think that's the perfect spot to be in. Now, if I try to constantly remind the listener that, hey, Deepika Arun is narrating, Deepika Arun is narrating, through my voice or overaction or too much modulation or whatever, then I don't think I will be successful. I don't think I can be successful.
then the
Only
listening
if,
becomes more intellectual than emotional.
yes, I should not trust my feeling or emotion there. I should just convey the character's emotion through my voice. So my voice should just be a bridge. And it would be amazing if the bridge is sort of invisible. It becomes invisible at some level. So I think that's what I'm still trying to do, I would say.
No, I've listened to some of your audiobooks. They're just and I don't know if I told you this, but every time Pavitra and I, my wife and I, we go on longer drives, we play one of your
Oh, I didn't know
audiobooks.
that.
And yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
So we make trips to Ramanashramam, and
Okay.
that's our standard uh, travel time playlist.
Okay.
So yeah, something that
Okay, very
probably I didn't
interesting. I
share.
didn't know that.
Yeah.
Now, maybe I'm thinking I should not have spoken so much about what does it mean to be a narrator and all that. Now, PJ would be like talking so much, but not really happening for the listener.
No, it's been amazing. And I didn't want to tell you this, at least bring it up in this conversation. I probably thought we would have talked about it, but no. No,
Okay.
we thoroughly enjoy, and mostly we listen to the short stories,
Okay.
uh, because we don't want to leave anything
I know,
halfway.
I know. Okay.
It's an obsession. But yeah, we listen to the short stories.
Nice, nice.
Great experience, actually. Very good
Thank you.
experience we have had.
Thank you.
Thanks for starting it. I think um, it's the listeners that benefit because of your that particular transition.
Thank you.
And yeah, and so you also started some podcasts, right, in addition to
Yeah, so one
narrating
interesting
audiobooks.
transition or one interesting thing that happened after I shut down Jula was that I wanted to stay in touch with children in some way, right? In some way that stays true to Jula's principles. While audio is not really gadget free, it is screen free. Like you can keep the phone away and you could still listen to audio. So I thought a podcast is a great space for me to stay in touch with children. So that's when I started. So after shutting down Jula, I started this podcast for children in Tamil. It's called Chittukuruvi podcast. and it's a Tamil podcast where I tell simple stories for children in Tamil, and I essentially do what I did at Jula through these stories. It's to have a conversation with the child. It's not about telling them, hey, moral of the story is, right? I don't believe in that. But I would end every story with a question, or it would be asking the child to ask a certain question, right? So I would always end the stories like that. Or I would have a simple tongue twister in Tamil or a puzzle in Tamil. For me, Chittukuruvi podcast was in some way staying in touch with children and not letting go of Jula fully type, right?
Right.
So that is another podcast I do. And right now I'm doing two podcasts. One is a true crime podcast, which is a proper immersive audio drama type, where there are two narrators, and it's called Section 302. Of course, as I said, it's a true crime show. But what makes it unique is the production. We've spent a lot of time in getting the music sound effects right, and we don't just stop telling the story for what it happened, but we try to add interesting bits of information also, that sort of people can listen and make that a point of conversation when they talk to somebody else type. And instead of having or don't become like that serial killer, obviously that is the moral of the story. However, we try to talk about some part of psychology as to what could have made this person do that, and what can we do as a society to avoid like that. So it's an experiment we are doing, I would say, in terms of why a true crime show. Of course, true crime is a sought after genre in podcasts. It's one of the most consumed genres in podcasts, but
Hmm.
we also
I
wanted
couldn't
it to
have
be
guessed.
different. Huh?
I couldn't have guessed.
Yes, it is. But we're also trying to have a USP to it, that is not just this being reporting a true crime incident, but what can it be above and beyond that is what we are trying with that.
So it's
I
more of
also
a
have a spiritual.
dramatized narration of true
Yeah,
crime along with
it
your
has
perspectives on
two
it.
narrators, not too much drama, but we try to make it immersive in terms of the music and sound effects. That's what we
Very
try to
interesting. I
do.
haven't listened to it. Maybe I will
You
pick up
should
pick it
try
up.
and
I
let me
will
know what you think. So
absolutely.
that is one, and the other one is it's a Sai Satcharitam podcast. That it's a spiritual podcast. A lot of people read the Sai Satcharitam, so we wanted there to be a listening element to this Sai Satcharitam, and that's something that's happening now.
Excellent. Amazing. So true crime. It's a spiritual podcast and Chitakuruvi for kids going well, and you've been producing and so many audiobooks and also narrating so many audiobooks. What happened after?
So I think there is one small timeline mess up that has happened in our conversation. So this whole true crime and spiritual podcast, this happened over the last 7 8 months. But
Ah,
I quit Storytel almost 2 years back, I think.
wow. Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Storytel was just the audiobooks uh, world.
Yes.
Yeah, not the podcast.
Storytel journey was amazing, right? Because on the one hand, when you think about what is your legacy or what have you left behind, sort of thing, right? When we think about something like that, I think in some sense, Storytel and the Tamil audiobook catalog that we created at Storytel would be in some sense a legacy, because I signed some of the best authors, some of the best books. I was chasing some authors for almost 2 years to sign them up and to get their audiobooks digitized. And this is going to stay, it's going to stand the test of time in some sense, because it's all there on the cloud or wherever, right? So, Storytel is sort of something like a legacy type for me. I really enjoyed my stint at Storytel, but then I went on a vacation. I was thinking about life, and After that vacation, people around me have asked me not to take vacations. So, I came back and I decided that enough with Storytel, and I quit Storytel. Uh, I came back from my vacation, and I think a week into work, I quit Storytel, and my manager and the other people at Storytel were very understanding. They sort of understood that. From my past journey, I think they figured that I'm probably ready for the next jump, is what they thought. But actually, in reality, I did not have a plan as to what I would do next. In all the previous transitions, if you notice, there is a plan, right? There's Harishri waiting for me, and there is productive solutions, and then there is Jula, there is something else is there. But this transition, I quit again from a very good paying job, right? This is again a corporate job of sorts, where after a very long time, I'm getting back into a corporate work mode, and I'm having a monthly paycheck, right? Um, and now I have a daughter, I have to pay school fees, there are new commitments, and we have established a certain saving pattern, investment pattern, and here I am jumping to zero again. That was very interesting, I would say, in terms of what I went through. I don't know why I felt so compelled to quit. I felt that the job was getting redundant, and maybe I might not add too much value to it anymore. Maybe I wanted to take up something more challenging, but God knows what that challenge was, right? Because it was not waiting for me. um, I made the decision, and I was quite vulnerable for a few months post that. I wasn't sure what I'm going to do next. There was nothing waiting for me. There was no obvious answer to my questions. Those were a pretty, I think, difficult 3 4 months. I ate my husband's brain like a big time, and I was in conversation with Audible. I was in conversation with Spotify, and I was talking to a few other people to produce podcasts, audiobooks. I was still narrating for Storytel, though. I must say that. What I did not do was be the language manager for Tamil, but I continued to be the narrator because a lot of books were already approved in my voice. So I had some work to do. I had something to do, but there was no clear path for, okay, what would happen once I finish recording these books? That was a very uncertain, I think, very uncertain phase. Nothing was working out. I was constantly, pitching a lot of shows to a lot of people. Nothing happened for a while, and then suddenly everything came together again. uh, that was quite interesting. Thinking about it now, it's interesting. If my husband ever watches this podcast, which he won't, hopefully, but if he does, and if he is going to know that I use the word interesting, he's going to come after me big time, because only he knows all the drama that happened during that phase, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, that
yeah.
was that was a quite that was quite an
What?
interesting transition.
Yeah. What came together? You said everything came together. What came together at that point?
Um, so I had pitched some shows for Spotify, and one Spotify original thriller podcast got approved. I created an audio drama for Spotify. It's an audio thriller drama featuring Deepa Venkat. Deepa Venkat is the voice of Nayanthara.
Hmm.
So I got the opportunity to become a director of an audio drama. I directed about 50 voice artists for that project. And it was absolutely fascinating. It was a great learning journey for me in terms of adapting a script into Tamil and getting the right voice actors to be cast as the right voices for the different characters in the script, and getting the emotions right in just audio, because you don't have a visual support, right? When somebody is listening to your drama, they don't see a face. Everything has to happen inside their brain, and that was a huge challenge. So that was very very fascinating. And then I had approached Audible to distribute some of my audiobooks that I had done on Kadayosai, and that deal also came through. And I was parallelly talking to Audible to narrate some books, and so all that happened. And it I did a lot of work in a new dimension, right? That's what I was missing at Storytel, and that's what made me quit. And then I went through this 3 4 month period of vulnerability and self doubt, and was I too egoistic to quit that job, and all these questions and torturing people around. But then it all worked. Again, a huge blessing, I must say, that all the email correspondence and all the pitching and everything sort of translated into something. And yeah, that was a phase. And then Spotify had originally commissioned for 4 seasons of this audio drama. At the end of the third season, they said, cost cutting, boss, don't do season 4. So
Wow.
that was another transition where, again, for a brief period of time, I did not know what next. And then this Human Podium, which is a startup that I'm producing podcasts for currently, came. And right now I'm producing 2 podcasts for them. And yeah,
Wow. You
interesting.
produce podcasts for startups too. That's a part I didn't know.
Yes, I do. I do.
Excellent. And of course, in between all this, you probably got called from ACJ. Talk
Oh
about
yeah,
that.
that happened because of Spotify. So there is something called Spotify for podcasters, which is a tool on which you can distribute your podcast. And I've been distributing my Kadai Osei and Chittukurvi on Spotify for podcasters. So the team that takes care of Spotify for podcasters had reached out to me asking if I could mentor some of these new podcasters in Tamil, right? What does it mean to create a podcast? How do you do it consistently without expecting money in return? Type. So Kade Osei, I've been running for almost 5 years now. There is no straightforward monetization route to it, right? So Spotify found me very fascinating because I've been doing it for 5 years, not expecting Spotify to get some monetization in place. So that is how it happened. So I sort of mentored a few budding podcasters, and I did this in association with Asia Will for another group of podcasters. And Asia Will and ACJ have the same management. So somebody from Asia will reached out and asked, "Would you be interested to teach at ACJ?" And wow, that was again great. Again, blessing. No, I love teaching and I love audio, and here I get the opportunity to teach audio and teach podcasting. I grabbed the opportunity and I had a lot of fun. So this academic year, the course is over. So I taught podcasting to about 140 students in 7 different batches. And what a journey! It was amazing.
Wow. Incredible, incredible. So here we are, wherever you are today, and you're brimming, you're glowing with enthusiasm and energy. Um, I'm curious, Deepika. In all these transitions, is there anything that you learned about yourself? Uh, oh, interesting. Looks like this is part of who I am. Did you have the kind of an epiphany about yourself? Did that ever happen?
I'm thinking if I can have a moment of epiphany now. But I think I don't know if I can call it epiphany, but throughout these different transitions, right, I still apply some stuff that I learned from my TCS days. What I'm doing is not related to what I was doing at TCS at any level, right? But one thing I understood that um, we learn a lot of skills. It need not be specific to the kind of work that you do or the actual work that you do, but so many things you learn, right? I learned a bit of project management in TCS, and then I still apply that today in what I do. So I think I wouldn't call it epiphany, but I think I have the capability to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, to apply learnings from the past in different situations appropriately. And I think that's what has helped me to do whatever I do well. one thing I've always taken from my childhood, from my father. There is this saying in Tamil, "Seivana tirundache," which means whatever you do it well. And that is something I do in everything I do. If I do it, I should do it well. I should not do it like, okay, let me just do it, right? And that has helped me over time, I think. From my storytell days, from my jula days, the relationships that I have built, the contacts that I have built over time, and the skills I have learned, and applying these skills in different ways, I think um, that has what has helped me to arrive at this point, I would say.
Fantastic. And I think a lot of what you reflected on today, Deepika, so far about women's agency, give before you take, and sustain your skills and apply it in different, it will never go for a waste, right? And the support system, the importance of that. um, it's been very enriching for me to hear your journey, and also in a way, understanding what those spaces between those journeys looked like for you, and you were very vulnerable and open in sharing that. There's one more thing, maybe a couple more things before we kind of bring this to a landing. I know we are over time, but I don't have the heart to wrap it up just yet. uh,
Okay.
what are what are those little things, personal habits, if you will, if that's the right word, or rituals that you do to um, keep you grounded? There's so many things you've done, and almost in every turn you have taken, you have been successful. Of course, a lot of work has gone behind that, but your decision has proven to be right. Your choices have paid off,
I
right?
It's a blessing again, I think,
Right,
at some level. Yeah.
right, right. And also, so while this is happening, what is constant for you, what remains with you? Is there any habit, is there any ritual that you personally do to kind of keep yourself grounded and anchored?
Um, One is, I think, prayer. If ever I am having confusion or doubt, or fear of uncertainty, or this sense of anxiety over what would happen next, or whether this would actually work, I run to a temple, and I just pray that, hold my hand and be there with me in this journey. I don't pray that this should be successful, or the next thing should be successful. Because knowing me, I think one thing that is constant is I'm going to keep jumping, right? So this whole in the whole jumping journey, I pray to the higher power that please be with me and give me the strength to accept whatever comes my way. So I think this is the grounding thing for me. And the second constant thing that I have, it's not a ritual. Maybe a ritual brought me together with my husband, but he has been a constant through my ups and downs, and through my vulnerabilities, and through my self doubts and confusions. And he's always had this belief, trust, hope, call it whatever, right? But he
And also
always,
admiration, in a way, I would say, right?
ah, okay, I think I leave it to him. But I think he's always been more confident about the outcome than I've been. So he would always believe that it will work out, right? It will happen and it will be fine. And that has also grounded me, um, uh, to a large extent. Um, it's one thing, right? When somebody listens to my journey, or when somebody is seeing the path I have taken, it might be all fascinating and interesting, and it'll be like, wow, you know, you were able to do that and this and both well and all that. But to actually go through that journey and to do that, it cannot be done alone, I think. And he's been this amazing person who has always, been there with me, for me, and who has always believed in me more than I've believed in myself, I think. So these two things are very constant in terms of how I stay grounded. That is one. But one thing I do is, I still listen to a lot of audiobooks. I've not stopped listening. I think that's an important point, I would say. The reason being, again, there is a saying in Tamil, Arai Noolagam Padithavan Ezhuthalan which means somebody who reads half a library becomes a writer, right? Now, if I have to be an audiobook artist or if I have to be a podcaster, I have to listen first. I have to understand the way audio works. So I still listen to a lot of audiobooks as a listener, and I find sheer joy in audiobooks, in listening to audiobooks. So that is something that I really enjoy doing, listening to audiobooks. Yeah, so these are the things probably.
Great, great. And so now, audiobook is your de facto consumption of books.
No, I read
You
also.
still read.
Yeah, I do read. I read in Tamil more, and I listen to English more.
Yeah, it's also interesting, from Harry Potter to Ponniyin Selvan to Lasara, to true crime, across genres. Um, I think it kind of gives you a perspective also, right?
Yes. See,
Uh,
one very interesting point, I've always been talking about this to whoever listens to me. Now you're stuck with me. So it's, I think we have not realized the potential of what fiction could do to people, right? We've been telling people, read, study, get information like self-help, motivation, non-fiction, biographies, history, all that's fine, right? I mean, great, do it. But I think we've undermined the value of fiction. What fiction could do to a person, I think what you mentioned is perspectives, right? One gets perspectives through fiction like nowhere else. So for me, I think um, fiction is my go-to genre. If you ask me, literary fiction would be my go-to genre, and I love listening to literary fiction audiobooks. And we should actually encourage more people to listen and read to fiction, which is not happening much, I would say. Five books that changed my life, and everybody would start with, James Clear and Rich Dad
Stephen
Poor
Covey or
Dad.
whoever. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, no, no, no. You go read Matt Haig's Midnight Library, or go read Frederick Backman's Anxious People. I think in day-to-day life, when we handle people, relationships, nothing like fiction to give us perspectives.
100% agree with you, and I'm with you on that, because not just books but also cinema and any form of art, creative, fiction and story and epic or whatever it is, gives that perspective to me. I've been inspired by characters, I've been inspired by situations,
Yes.
felt inspired. So I think I can relate to what you're saying about that. And maybe that's a good point to perhaps bring this to a landing. And I think, we could go on and on for more hours. We have several topics that we can have separate conversations on. I'm sure I'll invite you again for those as well.
Oh,
But
very, very kind of you.
this has been a very, very profound conversation, Deepika. There's been a lot of takeaway for me. I'm sure those who are listening will also feel the same way. And thanks for doing that. And maybe you could share with us a parting note, and then we can wrap this up.
Oh, that's very difficult, no, to sort of give a parting note that puts a lot of responsibility on me. I do not really know what to say in terms of one. one key takeaway of sorts, right? But if I had to do that, then it would definitely be Seivana Tirundache, right? Like whatever you do, put your 100% into it. Even if it's taking a bath, like, like very simple thing. I think if we start doing that in everything that we do, it would definitely translate into something meaningful later. So maybe that's the parting note.
Fantastic. And maybe that's the thread that binds all of your pursuits and endeavors.
I hope so.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Deepika. It's been wonderful, fantastic conversation, and yeah, we'll stay in touch, and I'll call you again for hopefully for the education conversation.
Thank you, PJ. I hope the listeners of your podcast would find this interesting. Thank you for having me as a guest on your show.
Absolutely.